Welcome to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. This is where tradition meets truth and nothing is off limits. This week, helping me tackle all of the headlines are royal commentators Jennie and Duncan Larcombe. Happy holidays to both of you. Unfortunately, it's been kind of a tough week for Prince Andrew. And I say unfortunately, because I guess we'll go into this the drama. It was reported on Monday that Prince Andrew was being excluded from Christmas celebrations at Sandringham. Andrew is now likely to spend the day at his home, Royal Lodge. The Duchess of York has spoken out. She referred to herself as a carer to Prince Andrew, who she described very sweetly as a sad man. I am surprised to find myself in this position, but I agree with Richard Tice of the Reform Party, who said he feels like this is a political move when it comes to Prince Andrew. Much bigger people were associating with this alleged Chinese spy, but Prince Andrew has the sexier name for the headlines. Jennie, I would ask you, I know you spent time with Fergie. Do you feel like this has been blown out of proportion when it comes to this Prince Andrew story?
Well, I think it's a question of him being a royal embarrassment that just carries on embarrassing year after year, scandal or story after story. Yes, this is more political, I suppose. And yes, this alleged Chinese spy was involved with politicians as well. But nevertheless, it just shows the lack of judgment that I'm afraid the prince has. And he has shown that time and again. I find myself surprised saying this, in that I have a certain amount of sympathy with him now. I've been harsh on him, really harsh. Everyone's been harsh on him. Mm-hmm. And some I'm just beginning to think kicking a man when he is really down, maybe we ought to, lay off just a little bit. There is such a thing as mental health, and a man can only take so much. So perhaps we should stop being so indisputably nasty, really, about Andrew. And I say I include myself in that. But he has made such a fool of himself over so many years. And I don't think he's actually been excluded. That's a very harsh word to say. He has been persuaded not to go, to uninvite himself to the Christmas celebrations. I think he was lent on fairly heavily, but I don't think that Charles went as far as saying, you can't come, because that's an invidious position to put a brother in.
Absolutely. Katie Nichol told me something very similar, and I tend to agree with the both of you that he wasn't given the boot. That's just something that sounds more exciting to some of the newspapers. Duncan, I'll ask you this question. The Daily Beast is reporting that at least two of Prince Andrew's friends have said that Prince Andrew has amazing contacts in the Middle East, so much so that he might be able to feel some sort of freedom and escape from the negative headlines if he were to, they said, pull a Harry and flee the country. Can you see that happening? He just seems so intent on keeping Royal Lodge. I have a hard time believing he'd be willing to leave something that he's so proud of. And I mean, he really just, I think he loves Royal Lodge.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot there to unpack. I think what I would say was Jennie's comments about Prince Andrew in regards to his latest thing is absolutely right. You know, kicking a man when he's down. He has become the royal family's pariah, which is quite tough when you're up against the likes of Prince Harry, who's slagging the royal family off at every opportunity. I wouldn't blame him if he moved abroad. I don't think he will. I don't think there's any substance in that story. I think that Andrew must be, goodness only knows what Andrew must be going through in terms of he can't do right for doing wrong. And, you know, I think the scale of the allegations against him, which he denied, in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, are just so big. It's the sort of thing you just simply don't bounce back from that, frankly, Kinsey.
That is the truth, but I am with Jennie. I'm feeling guilty about the pile-on at this point in time, especially when it comes to this story, because I really don't think that Prince Andrew has the authority to do anything. But we'll have to wait and see. This is more of a, sorry, Jennie, to do this to you. This is more of an us story, but Queen Camilla awarding royal warrants to some of her beautician associates. I love the idea of this bee venom facial. I've never heard anything like this when it comes to Queen Camilla, so this surprised me. I guess I would first ask you, for Americans, what is a royal warrant? And then number two, have you had a bee venom facial?
I would if I was offered one, certainly. I've heard about them and I think they're very effective. Clearly, the Queen thinks they're extremely effective. A royal warrant is a sign of approval by the royal family. It shows that the royal family use your products and come to your shop. And obviously, it carries a great cachet. And I think it's lovely that Camilla has rewarded these people who've been looking after her for years. You know, one thing, I often go back to what Diana used to say to me, and Diana said that Camilla was very loyal. She meant it in connection with the relationship, but I think she is a very loyal person, and she's been extraordinarily loyal to her beautician, extraordinarily loyal to her hairdresser, Joe Hansford. She's been with Joe for 3 decades, I think. Yeah. And you know, you'd kind of think when you become queen or even duchess, or you know, maybe queen, you would change up a gear, but she hasn't. And she's rewarded these people who've stuck by her through thick and thin, and it's lovely, and it's really good for their business.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the idea of the bee venom, Queen Camilla, I mean, this is courage, was one of the first people to try this famous bee venom facial that now it's Heaven Health Beauty, run by Deborah Mitchell. And now the next time I'm over there, I'm just going to have to walk in and say, give me the bee venom. So Duncan, I hate to say this, you're going to be very angry with me.
Oh, no.
This is almost, I mean, this is what Meghan Markle is likely trying to create with American Riviera Orchard, right? The Meghan Markle warrant, the seal of approval from Meghan Markle. I mean, it's definitely not as prestigious, but it feels in the same category, right?
Well, for completely different reasons. I mean, you know, Queen Camilla will endorse that. The royals are entitled to do that. As Jennie says, it has a huge impact on what the products they, you know, it helps them. It's brilliant, frankly, for any royal warrant. I'm not sure with Meghan whether that's going to have the same effect. And once again, it's the Sussexes trying to do their own thing as if they were royals, when of course we know they've chosen not, frankly, to be working royals.
Well, that was a very politically correct answer, and I appreciate that. Jennie, do you have any opinion? I mean, I guess it's not fair of me to say because we have not seen American Riviera Orchard yet, but when she talked to the New York Times, that's kind of what I felt like she was trying to build out. I'm endorsing these products. These are Meghan, you know, this is the Meghan seal of approval. And, you know, her investment strategy, these 10 brands she has in her portfolio, it feels similar. Or is that just being an influencer?
Yeah, well, that's true. Actually, it is just being an influencer, but she's a mega influencer, isn't she? She's got a huge following. She has a global platform. She is an extremely famous woman. And so why isn't she going to use that commercially, having set herself free from the royal family and from the restrictions of being in the royal family? You know, good on her. But it's not the same as a royal warrant. No, of course it's not. It's much more, as you say, a celebrity endorsement.
Absolutely. Now, there was a sweet story I stumbled upon in Style about how King Charles has all of these framed photos around his home. And it was a visitor for a holiday event at Highgrove House that stumbled on 2 pictures of the Sussexes on display. Now, everybody's calling this an olive branch. I would say I would expect nothing less from the king than to have pictures of his son in his home. But I thought that the description of the images was interesting. The wedding photo reportedly selected by King Charles for display in the estate was of the entire family. It included the Prince and Princess of Wales, which, you know, it was noted there might not be a photo like that anytime soon. Another one of the photos was the king with both of his sons. I guess, Jennie, I would say a sweet story, but not necessarily breaking news, right? It's nice to know that the king has this pictures of his family all over his home.
You're being far too sensible, you know. You wouldn't make a Fleet Street reporter. You know? No, of course, there's nothing sensational about it. It's perfectly normal and perfectly ordinary. Had he placed pictures behind him when he did his Christmas speech, for example, if we saw that, then that does have some significance. But this is someone, a visitor to Highgrove, who happened to see these pictures there. And yes, of course, he's going to have pictures of his darling boy. He loves Harry. Of course he does. He's terribly upset that they're estranged. And he's not going to cut them out of his life, and he's not going to cut them out of his house either. So it's perfectly normal, as you say.
Duncan, how normal is it to be able to attend events at Highgrove House? As I was reading this article, I thought, where is my invitation? I would love to. I'd love to walk around.
I'm sure you would, and I'm sure they would hate to have you because you'd say as much as I would or Jennie would. I mean, going back to those pictures, you know, you wonder whether there was smashed glass in the frame, you know, anger and so on. But, you know, in the reality of things are that I think to see that as an olive branch is possibly a step too far. But I think, you know, Harry has done nothing but attack his father and his brother and his sister-in-law, for that matter, since they left the royal family. And I think, you know, Prince Charles, when he became king, as King Charles, in his first speech, remember, he actually emphasized how much he loved his son, Harry, and Meghan. And I think this is more of an example of how wounded the royals are by the attacks that they've had to endure over the last few years. And this time last year, as the royals geared up for Christmas, hanging as a sword of Damocles, they had the fact that his book Spare was about to come out in January.
No, last year it was Endgame, remember? Spare was the year before. Last year it was Endgame, which was just as hurtful because of the Dutch release, which accused the Princess of Wales and King Charles of you know what. I won't even regurgitate it. But no, I agree with you. I mean, I think where I agree with you is these are older pictures. It would be nice to have newer, you know, it's sad that there are no newer pictures. We also know that according to People magazine, although we know that Harry and Meghan do work with them sometimes, they did send a, you know, super secret Christmas card to friends and family. And, you know, that's something that could potentially be framed but wasn't spotted. I'm sure that the king is trying to protect their privacy, though, and keeping some of those personal photos set aside. I would like to, I haven't mentioned this to either one of you. I apologize. I stumbled upon it right before the show. But there is a news report about the Montecito Journal, poking fun at Harry and Meghan again. The Montecito Journal has poked fun at them several times, and it's a left-leaning publication, which surprises me that they would show any sort of hostility towards Harry and Meghan, because I do feel like in California, Harry and Meghan run in those circles. But I don't know if you remember this. They claim that the king is one of their readers, the Montecito Journal. They say that he reads it to keep up with what his son and what's going on in their universe. But they made headlines a few months ago when they pointed out the fact that Harry and Meghan were doing some solo engagements and speculated on their marriage. Well, they're back this week mocking the Sussexes' potential Christmas plans. I mean, really just due to the fact that they're not heading to Sandringham for the holidays. The article was titled "Local Couple Likes Living Here." And they talk about how Prince Harry opened up about his decision to stay in the US and New York a few weeks ago or last week. And the article states that Harry and Meghan are set to spend Yuletide in our rarefied enclave with their children, Archie and Lilibet. And they basically just say, what local activities might they explore? They list those local activities, knowing that Harry and Meghan have never attended them in previous years. They finish sarcastically with the community awaits Jennie, what? I mean, obviously they're making international headlines by doing this, but do you think this kind of commentary gets under Harry and Meghan's skin?
I don't think that probably they read it. I hope not. I know Harry used to read far too much about himself. I hope he's learned a lesson and not to do so. I'm ashamed of my own profession, really, sometimes. I mean, digging dirt, stirring up trouble trying to, in a marriage about which we know nothing. And from outside appearances appears to be extremely happy and very united. I've said before and I'll say again that we don't suddenly say, oh, the Princess Royal is carrying out an engagement without her husband. I mean, she carries out hundreds of engagements without her husband. We don't say that Sophie Wessex, the Duchess of Edinburgh, has gone to Africa on a tour by herself. They're on the verge of divorce. I mean, it's absolute rubbish. It's garbage. And I wish they'd stop it and just leave people alone.
Jennie is feeling the Christmas spirit. She is trying to push some people on the nice list, get them off the naughty list. And I love that about her. Duncan, do you think that this is, do you think that the community, because there was that German documentary that recently came out where there was a neighbor that said that they felt like Meghan and Harry really did not invest in the community. They didn't see them very often. Are they trying to force them out of their home? Are they trying to force them to engage in the community with some of these comments? What do you think the ultimate objective is?
Well, I think, I mean, as what Jennie just said, I mean, no one's got the right, none of us have got the right to pass comment and judgment on the state of another couple's marriage situation, you know, and as these whispers come out from sources in various news and online outlets saying that there's trouble in paradise for Harry and Meghan, you know, that worries me. I think that crosses a line in terms of what we can comment on. But you know, ultimately, it is interesting how they have spent the year pursuing almost their own particular agendas. That's probably a very healthy thing, frankly. I think for the first couple of years when Harry was out in Montecito in California, he was almost following, it looked as though he was in Meghan's shadow, backing her up all the way along, letting her take the driving seat. So, you know, I'm not sure I've answered your question properly, but what I would say is I think that, you know, nobody knows the state of another person. You don't know your neighbour's state of their marriage. You might hear shouting, doesn't mean they're going to get divorced.
I would argue that if I were Prince Harry, I would also let Meghan take the driver's seat because California drivers are a nightmare, and he probably has yet to completely come to terms with that. It has been a while since Prince Harry and Meghan have spent Christmas with the royal family, 2018. There is a report out. This is just a commentator saying something kind, but I think I don't know. I think it's worth debating that the Princess of Wales might send I wish you a Merry Christmas to the Sussexes. It says that former royal butler Grant Harold seems to think that the prince's sister-in-law, Catherine, could reach out and wish the couple a Merry Christmas. I believe that Catherine will reach out to Harry and Meghan and wish them a happy Christmas. And I think Harry and Meghan themselves will possibly reach out. He told GB News, the thing about Christmas is that it's all about goodwill to others, letting bygones be bygones, forgetting the past, moving into the new year. Jennie, the royals have had a really tough year. They've had to process some very frightening situations health-wise. We have seen how it's united the Prince and Princess of Wales. Are they just going to focus on themselves in the future this year? Or do you think that it's softened their hearts?
Well, once again, we have no idea. That's the truth, let's just say. Obviously, Christmas is the time when, you know, you reach out to family and loved ones. And yeah, I don't think it's beyond the bounds of possibility that they will send a card or a message to each other. But I have no idea. I don't think in the coming year William will have any more room in his heart or his head for Harry and Meghan. I don't see that rift healing anytime soon, but it might one day. But that day is still a long way off because this coming year is going to be all about getting Catherine gradually back on the public stage. William has said that he wants very much her to accompany him on a royal tour. I don't know where, probably it will be quite brief. But she will also be concentrating on the kids, and I'm so in favour of that. I've been thinking that the days of duty, and the late Queen lived by duty, I think they may be coming to an end, and I hope they are, in that I don't think duty has to take precedence over everything in your life. I think that's really quite destructive. And they've got 3 kids, as we know, and, a mum who's been through one heck of a year. And I think in these coming months, they need to just stick together. It's quite a difficult time for George, coming up to the end of one school, moving on to another, and be a little family. And do your public works, but don't make too much of a fuss and bother about it if you don't feel like doing, or you can't do it. And I don't think in all of that there'll be much time for Harry and Meghan, sadly.
Yeah, I want to stick with you if you don't mind. There have been some what I find pretty morbid and vulgar headlines over here, specifically from People magazine, how Catherine's preparing to become queen sooner than she thought. Are we just the worst in the States when it comes to inappropriate topics? I felt like when Catherine announced, I have to go away, I have an abdominal surgery. Why did we not? I remember being on a panel with somebody, with a doctor. I mean, I didn't know that this was going to be the discussion, but they had me on a panel with a doctor on a national cable show. And they were asking the doctor to try to determine what type of cancer she would have based on, spaces in the middle of her sentences in her statement. To me, talking about Catherine preparing to be queen sooner, it's certainly would be considered treasonous years ago, but do we not have the same respect when it comes to the delicacy of health and the monarchy in the States based on some of the headlines you've seen?
Well, you're in a better position to answer that. What I do find it slightly ironic that Meghan stated some years ago that she didn't understand that the British tabloids would be so vicious, because she said, we don't have anything like that in the States. And I thought then, what? Really? Is that true? Yeah, because the headlines I see coming out of your country are frankly ludicrous most of the time. And in this case, tasteless and disrespectful.
Yeah, Duncan, what do you think about that? Because I actually met you. You and I were working with an American outlet when I actually met you for the first time. Do you feel like the questions sort of cross the line sometimes when it comes to the royal family's health and when it comes to their future?
Well, the reality is, whether it's a British tabloid or a broadsheet or part of the British media, we are constrained by the absolute need to tell the truth. And often the stories that come are ones from online, often from America, and from websites out there. And I often think, oh my goodness me, how have they published that? And we saw that with the trolling of Kate when she was unwell, and it wasn't nice. And she broke with the royal tradition of never explain, never complain. And she found herself not complaining, but explaining her situation. So I think when we look back on the last year for the royals, it has been quite almost a watershed moment, I think, for the royals, where they know they can't just, follow the Queen's example, the Queen Elizabeth's example of just staying stoic and above the news, away from the limelight, never ever kind of lifting back the curtain, if you like. I think those days are gone now. The reality of it is, unfortunately, they have to explain and nip certain things in the bud. So I think it's been quite a historic year, actually, for the royal family.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very grateful that I got to spend this royal year with the both of you, royal commentators, Jennie Bond and Duncan Larcombe. Thank you for your time and excellent insight today. Happy holidays, and enjoy all the little kids running around, all the yummy snacks, and Santa Claus. I hope he's good to both of you.
Thank you.
Happy Christmas.
Thank you. Happy Christmas.